The wind blew cold through the stone halls of King's Landing, but Lord Eddard Stark felt something even colder deep in his bones. A quiet warning. It had been only days since Catelyn had secretly come to the capital to warn him about Jon Arryn's death and the Lannisters' possible role in it. She had left in secrecy again, planning to return to the north through the Riverlands. But Ned couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. He sat in the Tower of the Hand, staring at the fire, when a knock came at the door. Sir Jory Castle entered, his face tense. "My lord," one of our riders returned. "He followed Lady Stark's trail, as you ordered. She never made it past the inn at the crossroads." Ned stood slowly. "When?" "2 nights ago. He saw Lannister men there. Quiet ones. Paid to keep eyes open." Ned's fists clenched. He had stayed in the south too long, trusting too much. Catelyn was in danger, and this time he would not be too late. Within the hour, Ned had gathered trusted men, Jory, Harwin, Fat Tom, and others sworn to House Stark. They rode through the night, fast and quiet, slipping out of King's Landing before the Lannisters could even notice. For once the southern heat helped them. No snow, no ice, only mud and dust. Still, Ned's mind burned hotter than the sun overhead. They reached the inn by midday. It looked quiet from the outside, but Harwin noticed the broken branch near the stable, a sign of struggle. As they approached, a stable boy tried to run, but Tom grabbed him. "Where is she?" Ned asked calmly, kneeling down. "My lady wife." "What happened here?" The boy was shaking. "A Golden Lion took her, with many men. Said she was spying. They rode west. Didn't kill her, but they said she was a message for the north." Ned felt the fury rise in him like a storm. Tywin Lannister was already making his move. They would hold her, use her as bait, break her in spirit to make the north kneel. But they had made a mistake. Catelyn Stark was not some frail flower, and her husband was not one to sit idle. They followed the trail faster now. The Lannisters weren't trying to hide. Why would they? They thought Ned wouldn't dare cross them. They thought they were safe under Robert's crown. But this time, Ned had no more patience for politics. It took 2 more days to find them. Near a burned-out village west of the Trident, they saw the Lannister camp. Red cloaks, banners with the lion. Maybe 20 men. Catelyn was tied near a tree, bruised but alive. She sat proud, her chin raised. A lion knight, Sir Adam Marbrand, stood near her, laughing with the others. Ned didn't wait. He nodded to Jory, and like winter shadows, the north fell upon them. It wasn't a fair fight. It was justice. Northern swords cut through Lannister arrogance like a blade through silk. Ned himself rode straight for Sir Adam. The man barely had time to draw his sword before ice, Ned's greatsword, crashed down and broke his defense. The lion died not with a roar, but with a whimper. Catelyn looked up, her eyes wide in disbelief as Ned cut her bindings. "You came," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "I should never have let you ride alone," he said, lifting her into his arms. Never again. They left none of the Lannisters alive. No messengers, no survivors. Only blood in the grass and a warning left behind. A sigil of the direwolf burned into a tree. Back at River Run, word of the rescue spread quickly. The Tullys stood behind the Starks. And in the north, Robb heard of his father's bravery and his mother's safety. Something deep and dangerous stirred in Winterfell. The war had not started yet, but the game had changed. Ned Stark was no longer just the quiet wolf trying to play by the rules. They had touched his family. Now the North remembered. When word of the Lannister men's deaths reached King's Landing, the Red Keep trembled, not from fear, but from fury. Queen Cersei Lannister stood before the Iron Throne, her hands clenched at her sides. The message had arrived in the form of a bloody Lannister banner, shredded and sent with the sigil of House Stark burned into its silk. The note attached said only 4 chilling words. "She is not yours." Cersei ripped the parchment and turned on Littlefinger, who stood nearby, watching with his usual mocking smile. "How did this happen?" she hissed. "He butchered my father's men like some northern savage and just walked away." Littlefinger shrugged. "It seems Lord Stark acted before your cousin Adam could deliver his message. A shame. You do know, don't you, my queen, that the North takes family?" Rather seriously. Cersei's face was pale with rage. He will pay for this. I swear it, but Littlefinger only smiled and leaned closer. Then you'll need to move quickly, because every house in the Riverlands just heard how Ned Stark rode through your men like they were sheep. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't hide behind the king. He struck first and won. That makes him dangerous. The queen said nothing, but her eyes were full of hate. Her game of secrets was starting to unravel, and for the first time, she felt like she was the one being outplayed, far away in Riverrun. Catelyn rested under the care of her father, Lord Hoster Tully. Her body ached. Her wrists were still bruised from the ropes, but her spirit, that was stronger than ever. Ned sat by her side, watching the sunlight play through the windows. "You should not have come," she said softly. "I couldn't stay," he replied. "Not when they had you. Not when I knew what they were capable of." She reached for his hand. "What you did, it changed everything." Ned knew it too. He had broken the invisible line that held the 7 kingdoms together. He had spilled Lannister blood without royal permission. He had defied the Queen, and worse, he had done it successfully, but he didn't regret it. Back in the capital, King Robert Baratheon finally heard the news and the fury of his queen. "He attacked my bannermen," Cersei shouted across the council chamber. "He ambushed them like a traitor, like a criminal. They took my wife." Ned roared back, his voice like thunder. "Was I to wait for your permission to retrieve her corpse?" Robert slammed his goblet down, wine splashing onto the floor. "7 hells, both of you. Enough." He looked between his friend and his wife, caught in a storm he no longer controlled. His eyes were bloodshot. His belly sagged. His patience was gone. "I won't have war between my queen's family and my hand. I won't. Ned, you went too far. And Cersei, your lions drew blood first." Ned stepped forward. "Your Grace, I swore to serve and protect the realm. But I will never bow to those who seek to destroy my family." Cersei's face twisted. "Then you're no better than a rebel." Ned didn't blink. "Say the word and I'll ride north tonight. But if you still value my counsel, then listen to me. The Lannisters are planning something. They killed Jon Arryn. They tried to take my wife. If I leave, you'll be next." Robert looked at his old friend, and for a moment something like fear crossed his face. "I don't want to hear any more talk of treason," he muttered. "You're my hand. Do your duty. And you," he snapped at Cersei, "stay out of my counsels." But the damage was done. The queen stormed out, her eyes like daggers, and whispered later that night to Jaime, "He thinks he's safe. He thinks he's clever. But we'll strike where it hurts most." Meanwhile, in the shadows of the city, Varys and Littlefinger whispered their own thoughts. "This move by Lord Stark changes the game," Varys said. "The lion is wounded, and a wounded beast is always more dangerous." Littlefinger smirked. "Oh, I rather enjoy this new game. Blood, honor, revenge. It's like a northern song, but songs don't end well, do they?" Back in Riverrun, Ned kissed Catelyn's forehead and stepped outside to speak with Robb, who had arrived with a small force of northern men. His son looked older, harder. "What now, father?" Robb asked. Ned looked to the south. "Now we prepare, because winter may be coming." He turned his gaze westward. "But war will come first." Tywin Lannister read the Raven's message in silence. It was a short letter, but every word was a slap to his name. 20 of his men, slain by a northern wolf. His cousin Adam, a knight of good standing, butchered like a common sellsword. No trial, no warning, no mercy, and worst of all, no consequences. He handed the message to Sir Kevan, his brother, without speaking. Kevan frowned as he read. "The wolf has teeth, it seems." Tywin turned to the map spread across the table. His fingers moved slowly, hovering over the Riverlands, then north to Winterfell. "No, Kevan," he said at last. "The wolf has drawn blood. Now it must die, quietly, without glory, without songs." He walked to the window of Casterly Rock, the golden sun setting on the horizon, turning the seas red. "We will not declare war." "Not yet," Tywin continued. "We'll strike in silence, like a dagger in the dark. Let the Starks think they've won something. Let them think they're safe, and if they press further, then the rivers will run red before snow ever falls." In Riverrun, Robb Stark stood in the training yard, sweat on his brow and fury in his veins. He had seen the bruises on his mother's wrists. He had heard how the lions mocked her, and he had watched his father ride out like a storm to bring her home. That fire was in him now. Each swing of his sword was harder, each breath deeper. The young Lord of Winterfell was growing, and every man watching knew it. Catelyn approached quietly, a thick cloak wrapped around her. "You're pushing yourself too hard," she said. Robb lowered his sword. "Not hard enough." "They would have killed you." "I wasn't there." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "But your father was. And you will be too one day. Just not with anger." "I don't want peace with them," Robb muttered. "They started this. They took Uncle Benjen. They killed Jon Arryn. They tried to take you. What will they take next?" Catelyn's voice was cold now. "If we don't prepare, they'll take everything." Back in King's Landing, things were changing. Slowly but dangerously. Eddard Stark had returned to his duties as Hand of the King. But now every step he took was heavier. The court was colder. Servants grew quiet when he walked past. And the Queen watched him like a lion, ready to pounce. But Ned had begun making his own quiet moves. He met with Sir Barristan Selmy behind closed doors. He summoned Varys and asked him questions no other lord dared ask. And most of all, he began collecting proof. The truth about Jon Arryn's death, the secret that cost him his life, and the bloodline that Cersei had tried so hard to hide, the king's bastards. The seed that did not lie. One by one, Ned visited them. Boys with black hair and strong jaws. Girls with nothing of Lannister gold in their eyes. And he knew the children on the Iron Throne were not Robert's. The truth was now a dagger, one that could either save the realm or start a war. But even as Ned uncovered secrets, Tywin Lannister acted. Deep in the Riverlands, villages began to burn. Quietly, without banners, without names. Raiders struck at night, killing men, burning crops, taking girls. The survivors told tales of men in red cloaks, though none were left alive to identify them. One village swore they saw Sir Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, but no proof remained. When word reached Riverrun, Lord Hoster Tully turned to his daughter. "They're baiting us," he said. "Tywin wants us to strike first." Catelyn nodded grimly. "He thinks honor will make us hesitate. Will it?" "No," she said. "Not anymore." At Harrenhal, a new raven arrived, not for any lord, but for a sellsword named Bronn, a coin, a name, a target, a man from the north, loyal to House Stark, a scout named Garrett, who had seen too much on the road south. Bronn accepted the coin without question. Later that night, Garrett's body was found in an alley behind a brothel in King's Landing. His throat cut, no witnesses, no suspects. But the message was clear. Ned Stark's wolves were being hunted, quietly, one by one. And in the Red Keep, Sansa Stark began to notice something too. Jane Poole had been crying at night. Septa Mordane had become tense, and Prince Joffrey, once cruel in small childish ways, had grown darker. He stared at her sometimes, not like a boy in love, but like a lion choosing when to strike. One night, Sansa walked into the garden and found Cersei waiting there alone. "Your father is a proud man," the Queen said, not looking at her. "Yes, Your Grace, so pride is dangerous in the south. It gets men killed," Sansa swallowed. "He's only trying to protect us." Cersei turned to her with a smile full of poison. "Then you should pray he's good at it. The Riverlands." Blood ash and smoke choked the air from Maidenpool. To the borders of the Trident, villages once full of farmers and children now lay in pieces, charred homes, butchered animals, and bodies left for the crows. None wore Lannister colors, but the survivors spoke of the same beast, a man the size of two, armor dark with dried blood, a sword that split men like firewood. Sir Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, had been unleashed, and Tywin Lannister said nothing. At Riverrun, word of the attacks reached Ned Stark through Lord Hoster's ravens. His jaw tightened as he read each report. His hands curled around the paper like they wished it was someone's throat. Catelyn stood by the hearth. "You know what this is?" "Yes," Ned said. "This is not punishment. This is not war. Then what?" He looked up at her, eyes like northern steel. "This is bait. In the Red Keep, King Robert Baratheon was drunk again. He slouched on the Iron Throne, goblet in hand, laughing too loudly at Sir Jaime's joke about a Myrish whore and a goat. Lords and sycophants filled the hall, pretending to enjoy themselves as the kingdom quietly frayed at the edges. But Ned Stark had had enough. He walked through the hall, silent as winter, and stood before the throne. The room fell quiet. Even Robert blinked. "Ned," he slurred. "Come sit. You'd look like someone pissed in your ale. I need your attention, Robert. Alone." Cersei, lounging beside the throne, smirked. "The hand has found something, no doubt. Another bastard in the brothels, perhaps?" Ned's eyes met hers. "Not another. Enough to prove your children are not Robert's." The silence snapped like a bone. Robert slowly stood. "What did you say?" "I have proof. Your children were never yours." "They are Jaime's," gasps echoed. "Someone dropped a cup." Sir Barristan stiffened. Even Littlefinger's smile flickered. Robert stared at Ned for a long moment, swaying slightly. "You come to me, in front of my court, and accuse my queen? I did not ask for your court. I asked for a private word." Cersei rose from her seat, eyes blazing. "He's calling your children bastards. He's calling your heir a lie." Robert turned on her. "Is it true?" She didn't flinch. She looked into her husband's eyes and for once dropped the mask. "Yes." The word hit the room like a hammer. "You were drunk when you married me," Cersei said coldly. "You whispered another woman's name in our bed. Did you think I'd give you a child?" Robert staggered back like she'd struck him. "You bitch." He raised his hand, then stopped. The whole court had gone still. Robert looked at Ned. "You knew." "I confirmed it, and you still serve me." "I serve the realm." Robert looked hollow now. "What am I supposed to do? Kill her? Kill my own children?" "They're not yours," Ned said gently. "And if you die, the throne passes to Stannis. He is your brother, your true heir." Robert dropped into his chair like a broken man. "Leave me." Ned hesitated, then turned and left the hall. Behind him, Cersei's eyes burned with hate. She would not wait for the king to decide her fate, not now. Not after this. That night ravens flew from the Red Keep, not from the Maester's tower, but from the queen's own chambers. One message went to her father. "The king knows. He will name Stannis. We must act before he does." And in the heart of Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister finally moved. He summoned his bannermen. He ordered troops to gather at the Gold Road. No banners, no war cries. Not yet, just one command: bring me the Riverlands. At River Run, Ned met Robb by the battlements. The boy's face was harder now. The Riverlords had begun raising men. Small folk came to River Run for protection. The Tully banners flew high, letters from White Harbor, Deepwood, the Dreadfort. "They're ready," Robb said. "If you give the word." "I came to find truth," Ned said quietly. "But truth has sharpened too many blades. You think the king will protect you now?" Robb asked. Ned looked south. "I think Robert's already lost." The moment he hesitated, the queen won. Robb stepped forward. "Then let us ride. Call the banners. Bring our men down the neck. The Lannisters think we're snow and stories. Let them feel what winter really means." Ned looked at his son. He no longer saw a boy. He saw a Stark of Winterfell. The Red Keep smelled of roses that morning, and blood by nightfall. Lord Eddard Stark stood at the window of his chambers, overlooking the city as the sun rose. King's Landing looked almost peaceful, but the stillness felt wrong. Too quiet, too calm, as if the city held its breath before a scream. The day before, Ned had sent a sealed letter to Stannis Baratheon, declaring him the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. It was a dangerous truth, but truth nonetheless. He had also summoned the City Watch, the Gold Cloaks, and met privately with their commander, Jonas Slint. "They will try to seize the throne before Robert acts," Ned warned. "The Queen will not go quietly." Slint nodded solemnly. "You'll have our swords, my lord. The Gold Cloaks serve the realm." But Ned didn't trust him, not fully. Not in a city that ran on lies and coin. Later that day, Varys appeared in the shadows of Ned's chambers, as he often did. "You move quickly, Lord Stark," he said, his voice silk soft. "And you think honor will protect you in a city where honor is dead. I think the realm deserves the truth." Varys gave a sad smile. It may, but truth has never saved a man from a dagger in the dark. In the great hall, King Robert sat weak and pale. The hunt had left him wounded. His skin was grey, his belly swollen with rot, and his breath rattled like dry leaves in winter. Ned stood before him with parchment in hand. "You must name your heir, your grace, while you still can." Robert nodded weakly. "Write it. My lawful heir, Stannis Baratheon. Let him rule." Gods know I never did. As Ned wrote, Robert closed his eyes. He would not open them again. By nightfall, the king was dead, and within the hour Cersei struck. The queen entered the throne room dressed in black, her golden hair pinned high, her face unreadable. Behind her came Sir Jaime, Sir Meryn Trant and Lannister guards, more than should have been allowed. Ned arrived with his men, Jory and the rest. He held the king's will, sealed, signed with the royal ring. He stepped toward the throne, where Joffrey sat smugly. "The king is dead," Ned said. "By his command and the law of the realm, I name Stannis Baratheon as rightful heir to the Iron Throne." Gasps echoed across the hall. Joffrey stood. "I am the king. I sit the throne." "You are not Robert's son," Ned said loud and clear. "You have no claim. The blood of Jaime Lannister runs through your veins, not Robert's." Chaos erupted. Cersei's face did not flinch. She turned to Sir Meryn and said one word: "Seize him." The gold cloaks hesitated, then turned their spears toward Ned. Janos Slynt stepped from the shadows, smiling. "I serve the realm," he said, "and the realm serves the king." Ned's men drew swords, but they were surrounded. Blades clashed. Screams rang out. Jory Cassell fell with a dagger through his neck. Fat Tom was dragged down under boots and steel. Ned fought fiercely, but a mace cracked against his knee, dropping him. Blood spilled across the stones. His sword was kicked from his reach. He looked up and saw Cersei standing over him. "You should have stayed in the north," she whispered. She turned to the guards. "Take him to the dungeons. Let the traitor rot." As they dragged Ned away, he looked once at the throne. Joffrey sat tall, grinning, wearing the crown that didn't belong to him. Ned Stark, the last honest man in King's Landing, was thrown into the black cells beneath the Red Keep. In Winterfell, the Raven arrived before dawn. Maester Luwin read the message twice, then looked up at Robb Stark. "Your father has been taken." "Charged with treason!" "The king is dead." Robb didn't speak. His jaw locked. His fingers trembled for a moment, then curled into a fist. He stood slowly, walked to the center of the great hall and said, "Call the banners." No one hesitated. Ravens flew, horns blew, wolves howled. The north rose. At Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister received word of Robert's death and smiled behind his wine. "So it begins," he murmured. He turned to Sir Gregor. "Ride east. Burn the riverlands to ash. Let the Tullys cry for help. And when they do," he looked south, "we'll remind them that lions do not share crowns." By week's end, the 7 kingdoms were split. The south wore gold. The north bled red, and in the dungeons below the Red Keep, Ned Stark sat in darkness, wounded, betrayed, and alone, but not broken. Robb Stark stood beneath the weirwood tree in Winterfell, snowflakes melting on his cloak as the banners rose behind him. Grey direwolves, flayed men, white bears and black mermen flapped in the wind. Lords from every corner of the north had come, not for politics, not for power, but because one of their own had been taken like a criminal. The boy who was once Lord of Winterfell had become something else entirely. The men who watched him didn't see a 16-year-old boy. They saw a wolf who had tasted blood. "They call my father a traitor," Robb said loudly, his voice carrying across the godswood. "They say he tried to steal a crown for another man. They say he lied." He turned slowly, his eyes meeting the faces of each bannerman. "But we know the truth. We know who he is." The words came sharper now, colder. "He is Eddard Stark of Winterfell, Warden of the North, and the Lannisters have him in chains." He unsheathed his sword and raised it to the sky. "We march at once. We ride not for glory, not for vengeance, but for honor." 1,000 swords rang from their scabbards. 1,000 voices cried, "The king in the north!" Far to the west, In the belly of Casterly Rock, Tyrion Lannister stood before his father's stone table. The map of Westeros lay before them, dotted with pins of gold and red. Lord Tywin didn't look up. "They've named Robb Stark the commander of a northern host," he said. 20,000 men crossing the neck. Lord Frey has yet to declare a side, but the Tullys are already with them. Tyrion raised an eyebrow. Then the boy isn't just howling. He means to bite. Tywin finally looked up, and the weight of it made Tyrion stiffen. "You'll ride to the Trident," Tywin said flatly. "Join your brother Jaime. He'll move to crush the Riverlords before the Starks arrive." Tyrion blinked. "And what am I supposed to do? Charm them with riddles while your butcher burns their fields?" Tywin didn't smile. "You'll remind the Riverlords what happens to those who defy House Lannister. Remind them, or slaughter them." Tywin stepped closer, voice lowering. "You're my son, Tyrion. Act like one. And if I don't?" Tywin's gaze turned to ice. "Then you'll die with the rest of the traitors." As Tyrion left the chamber, he found himself thinking of Ned Stark, a man he had once mocked, once pitied. Now sitting in the dark because he dared to speak the truth. Tyrion didn't like the man, but gods. He respected him. He wondered how long it would be before Tywin turned on him too. At Harrenhal, Sir Gregor Clegane arrived ahead of the main Lannister force. He wasted no time. Villages burned, daughters screamed, and the roads were choked with ash. He left no survivors, only mutilated corpses, mouths sewn shut, limbs hacked off, messages carved into skin with Lannister lions. It wasn't just war. It was a warning. He wanted the Riverlords to cry out for help. He wanted Robb Stark to come running right into their trap, and it was working. At Riverrun, Catelyn watched the skies darken as raven after raven arrived. Her brother, Edmure, slammed his fist into the map table. "They're butchering our people. We must strike now." "Wait for Robb," she said calmly, though fear twisted in her chest. "He's coming." But she couldn't help but think, what if the trap closed before her son ever got near? That night she prayed to the old gods, not for peace, but for vengeance. In the black cells of King's Landing, Eddard Stark sat in silence. He heard no birds, no laughter, no cries, only the sound of dripping water, slow and cold. He no longer felt the pain in his leg. He no longer cared about food. But his thoughts stayed sharp, carved by regret. He had trusted Robert. He had trusted the law. He had played the game too slow and lost everything. Then one day Varys appeared again, cloaked in shadows. "The Queen offers you mercy," he said softly. "Confess. Swear fealty to King Joffrey. Admit your treason. You'll be sent to the wall." Ned looked up. "And what of my daughters?" "They live. For now." Ned closed his eyes. Mercy from the Queen. A lie, perhaps. But a lie that might save Sansa, might save Arya. His honor weighed nothing now compared to his children. Back in the north, a blizzard hit the Wolfswood as Robb led his army south. Through snow and mud, his men rode with fury in their hearts. Old gods, young lords, and seasoned killers, all marching under the direwolf banner. Each mile closer to the south meant one thing. Ned Stark would not die in chains. Not while the north still remembered. The twins stood like a pair of grey, sour giants watching the world with suspicion. Built over the green fork of the Trident, the castle fortress of House Frey blocked the road south, and Robb Stark's army, 20,000 men strong, armoured and armed, waited on the muddy northern bank. But none could cross unless Lord Walder Frey allowed it, and Walder Frey didn't allow anything for free. Inside the draughty hall, the old lord sat hunched on his throne-like chair, his skin as wrinkled as dry parchment, his lips pursed like he was always sucking on a lemon. He stared at Robb, Catelyn, and the assembled lords of the north with watery eyes that held no warmth. "Well," he croaked, "you've come begging for my bridge, haven't you?" Robb stood tall. "We come seeking passage. We march to rescue my father. The Lannisters have him in chains." "Bah!" Walder snorted. "Your father's bones could be in a sack by now. You want my bridge, you'll pay for it." Catelyn stepped forward. "We're prepared to negotiate. What do you ask?" Walder grinned, revealing brown teeth. A betrothal. One of your sons, if the boy survives this war, will marry one of my daughters. And the young wolf himself must marry a Frey girl. Robb stiffened. That wasn't the agreement. It is now. Catelyn turned to her son. We need this crossing, Robb. Without it we lose time. We lose everything. He nodded slowly, jaw tight. Then I give my word. If we survive this war, I'll marry one of your daughters. Walder chuckled. Our love. So romantic, this business of war and weddings. As Robb turned to leave, Walder added, She's not the ugliest one, you know. Might even grow on you. By nightfall, the North marched across the bridge. Horses thundered over wet stone. Banners flapped in the wind. And Robb Stark led them south toward fire, but behind him, a silent shadow trailed his steps. Oaths never die quietly. In the black cells beneath the Red Keep, Eddard Stark sat with Varys. The eunuch's voice was soft, like a lullaby from a ghost. The Queen says you may live, if you confess, if you admit to treason, if you kneel before her son. Ned said nothing at first. His beard was growing in patches, his leg ached constantly, and his thoughts wandered often now. But when he spoke, his voice still carried the weight of Winterfell. And if I don't, then Joffrey will call for your head, Varys replied, and your daughters will be left with Cersei. Ned closed his eyes. He had told the truth. He had played honor like it was armor, and the result had been blood, chains, and death. He remembered Arya's wild eyes, her dirty face. He remembered Sansa begging the Queen to show mercy. 2 daughters still in the lion's den. My death means nothing, he whispered. But if I must wear the liar's cloak to save them, then I will. Varys bowed his head. Wise men sometimes must swallow poison to keep fools alive. In the Red Keep courtyard, a platform was built. A crowd gathered. Whispers moved like snakes. The traitor confesses. The Hand begs forgiveness. The king is merciful. Sansa stood in the crowd, eyes red, hands shaking. Arya was nowhere to be seen. She had disappeared 2 nights ago and no one could find her. On the platform, Ned Stark was dragged forward in chains. His hair was greasy, his legs stiff, his face pale, but his back remained straight. Joffrey stepped forward. Lord Eddard Stark, you stand accused of treason against the crown. What say you? Ned looked out over the crowd, and his eyes found Sansa's. He held her gaze. And then he knelt. I betrayed my king, he said. I conspired against Joffrey Baratheon. I am a traitor, and I beg mercy. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. But he said them for her, the crowd gasped. Some cheered. Others whispered. Cersei stood behind her son, satisfied. But Joffrey, drunk on power, had something else in mind. My mother would have you sent to the wall, he said, voice shrill. But traitors do not deserve such mercy. He turned, smiling like a spoiled boy with a toy. Bring me his head. Screams rang out. Cersei's smile shattered. Joffrey, no, but it was done. Sir Elyn Payne stepped forward. Sansa collapsed. Varys stepped back. The crowd roared, then hushed, and Ned Stark, Lord of Winterfell, Warden of the North, closed his eyes and whispered, Forgive me. The sword fell. In the camp of the Northern Army, a raven arrived at dusk. It bore no words, only a strip of parchment stained with blood. The news spread like wildfire. Robb read it, then crushed it in his fist. He didn't scream. He didn't speak. He simply turned to his men and said, Jaime Lannister dies first, and the war truly began. The wind howled across the Red Fork as the banners of House Stark, House Tully, and their vassals rose high in the grey sky. Steel flashed under rain clouds. Thousands of soldiers tightened their grips on spears and swords, faces grim, hearts thundering with grief and rage. On the southern bank stood the bulk of the Lannister army, commanded by Sir Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer. Golden armor, golden hair, golden arrogance. But even he could feel the storm coming. Across the field, Robb Stark sat atop his horse, eyes fixed on the horizon, where enemy banners waved like fire. He didn't speak much. He didn't have to. Ned Stark was dead. The South had murdered a man of honor and called it justice. The lion had roared. Now the wolf would answer. Catelyn rode beside him. Remember what's at stake. This isn't just revenge. This is the fate of our house, Robb nodded. I will not let his death be for nothing. We win here, or we die wolves. The horns blew, the north charged. The battle of the Whispering Wood began as a feint. Robb had sent a decoy force to draw Jaime east, fast cavalry, loud banners, visible movements. Jaime, hungry for glory, had chased them eagerly, but in the forest, Robb waited with the real army, silent, patient, deadly, as the Lannister vanguard rode deeper into the trees. The wolves closed in, arrows rained from above. Horses screamed. Men fell in the mud before they could raise shields. Chaos exploded beneath the whispering leaves. Jaime fought like the hero songs claimed he was, cutting down 2 men with every stroke. Golden hair drenched in blood, laughing as if death itself was a game. But the forest didn't care for heroes. Grey wind leapt from the shadows, snarling, tearing through a knight's throat. Robb came behind, sword raised, eyes cold. Jaime turned in time to block the strike. Sparks flew as steel met steel. They fought beneath the ancient trees. The Wolf Prince and the Lion Knight. You have your father's fury, Jaime spat. And you have your sister's cowardice, Robb answered. Blade sliding past Jaime's guard. The Kingslayer went down hard, a stark blade pressed to his throat, and just like that, the Lannister army broke. By nightfall, the field was silent. Fires burned, crows feasted, prisoners knelt in chains. Among them the Kingslayer, bruised, bound, and silent for once. Catelyn stared at him with bitter hatred. For my husband, she said coldly. You'll rot. But Robb said nothing. He only looked west toward King's Landing, where the boy who wore a crown sat safe behind red walls. Not for long. In the capital, chaos bloomed. Joffrey's execution of Ned Stark had turned the city into a viper's nest. Riots had begun, red carts overturned, gold cloaks overwhelmed. Sansa Stark was held in her chambers like a bird in a cage, and Arya Stark was gone. The night of the execution, she had slipped away. Syrio Forel had given his life buying her time. By the time the Queen sent guards to seize her, Arya had vanished. Some said she dressed as a boy and joined the Night's Watch recruits. Others swore she boarded a ship bound for Braavos, but none could say for sure. Only this: Arya Stark of Winterfell was no longer a child. She had seen death, and now death would follow her. In the dungeons of River Run, Catelyn visited the Kingslayer. She stood in the shadows, watching him in chains, his lip bloodied, his pride bent but not broken. "Does your sister know you've failed?" she asked. Jaime smirked. "Cersei always has a plan." Catelyn's voice cracked like ice. "So do I." At Winterfell, Maester Luwin lit candles as ravens fluttered in and out. One bore a message from the wall. Benjen Stark was still missing, and there were rumors of dead men walking in the snow. Luwin sighed. The kingdom burned in the south, but the real death was rising in the north. No one listened to the cold anymore. That night, Robb Stark stood alone beneath the stars. The sky was cloudless, the air sharp. He unrolled a fresh map of Westeros. His fingers hovered over the Crownlands, then traced east toward Harrenhal, and finally to King's Landing. "We took the Kingslayer," he whispered, "but the war isn't won." Behind him, grey wind growled low, not at a sound, but at a feeling. Like the world had shifted, like something darker than war had woken. And in the vale, high on the mountain paths, a girl with red hair and a look too sharp for her age climbed into a caravan bound for the north. Her name was now Arry, but her heart still whispered the words. Her father once spoke beneath the godswood. "The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives," and the pack was gathering.